Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another creative writing webinar. Corey here, and I have a special guest today.
I'm James.
And a lot of you guys know James. James, our resident space enthusiast from lots of fun space and science webinars. I don't know if you guys know this, but James is also a creative writer. James loves to write. James actually runs the writing club here at Delphian. So we thought we got to get James in here for a webinar before the end of all these webinars next week.
That's right. I have watched, even though I haven't been on, I have watched every single one of Corey's webinars that he's done here about creative writing. And I learn something every time. I'm like, oh, that's a good point. I should try that.
Thank you, James.
You're welcome, Corey.
And he's heard all of your guys' amazing writing. You guys impress me every day with the quality of the writing that you come up with on the spot. So yeah. Today, as you may have noticed if you read some of our social media, today is our 200th webinar.
Yay!
So congratulations to everybody who's been with us all this time. Oh, it's everywhere.
He didn't know I was going to do that.
That was a surprise. This is very fun. You guys can rip up some confetti at home too if you want to.
Well, check with your parents first.
Yeah.
I already decided I'm going to clean all of this up. So
celebration. So 200th webinar. I'm very honored that it's here in creative writing. Let's see who we have with us today celebrating as well. Hi, AG, April, Ethan, Evelyn, Fallon. Let's see, Gayathri, Haley, Isha, Isis, Katja, Kiara, Lila, Lorna, Mackenzie, Milo, Neve, Ronbeer, Sasha, Shanna, and Simon. Hi, everybody.
Hey, everyone.
A lot of familiar names there and a couple new ones. I think there's a couple people there that we haven't seen in creative writing in a while. So welcome back.
Yeah.
All right. So today we wanted to talk about National Novel Writing Month. And we're actually going to talk about a couple things before we get to that, because National Novel Writing Month is a good way to talk about some important things that we wanted to discuss.
Yep.
So hi to everybody in the Q&A box, by the way. If you want to, as always, if you want to ask any questions or you want to share any answers to any of the questions we ask, you can always type them into the Q&A box. So yeah, thank you for all of the congratulations and happy 200th webinar that you guys were sharing with us. So yeah, all right, let's jump into it. Okay, so writing. Oh yeah, we had to put this graphic up really quick. Fireworks too. Okay, so writing is often a solo activity. Solo means by yourself. When you're writing a story or book, you're usually working by yourself in a notebook or at a computer screen. Most people don't write with somebody else looking over their shoulder. You're usually doing it by yourself. If you get stuck in telling your story, or you're not sure what to write about next, there might not be many people around encouraging you to keep going. Many writers have lots of unfinished stories sitting around in notebooks or files on their computers. We tell ourselves we'll get back to those stories someday. Yeah, so I'm saying some writers there, but that's me and James. And I think anybody who's a successful writer or somebody who's interested in writing has experience with this. You come up with an idea, you start writing, you're really excited about it, but it's almost like a rocket, like burning through its initial, fuel, and
it goes hot and then it's gone.
Yeah, like how do you keep on going after your own initial interest in the story wears off or burns out? Maybe you had a fun idea and you write the beginning of your story, and then you're sitting there and it's like day 2 and it's time to like continue, and you're just like, and you have a new idea for a new story and you start working on something else, and
there you go.
that's how you end up with just notebooks full, or like, 50 files on your computer with like the, beginnings of 50 stories.
It was a dark and stormy night. Well, that's enough for one night.
Yep.
Or I don't know if this happens to you, Corey, but to me, pretty much every time I start a story, I have some idea that I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
I sit down, I start writing it, and it's not as good on paper as I thought it sounded in my head.
I'm familiar with that one
and
too.
I get discouraged and I drop it sometimes.
Yeah. There's a fix for that.
I'm so happy.
Yeah. So, what we can do about that, there are two ways that we're going to talk about today to solve this problem. Two ways to solve this problem can be by, one, getting organized in your writing, and two, by having a community. So getting organized can include, one, having a set time to write, two, meeting a daily word count goal, and three, deciding ahead of time not to edit until your first draft is complete.
That is huge.
Yes. And I thought we should talk about each one of these really quick. So first off, having a set time to write and meeting a daily word count goal. Why do you think that you should have a daily time to write?
Because it's so easy to not.
Yeah.
It's so easy to not write. It's not like a chore that's in your house that if you don't do it, if you don't take out the trash, it gets smelly and you have to take out the trash.
Yeah. If you don't feed your dog or your cat, they're scratching on the door, or they're barking at you and they're whining and you're like, oh, I got to do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you don't do the dishes, you don't have any more spoons to eat cereal with. It's a huge problem and you're forced to handle it.
Yeah.
In writing, that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Writing, it's art. It's an additional activity that isn't really a requirement. It's something that we do by choice. And when you have a busy day, you have school, you have homework, you do have your chores, your family responsibilities, additional things like writing can often be the first one to go.
Yeah. I don't have time for that.
Yeah. And additionally, writing is work. All of you guys that are doing the webinar are probably familiar with this, that writing can be tough. It takes energy. It takes thought. It takes, it takes something out of you.
It does.
So, if you have a choice between watching Netflix or doing the hard work of creating, of bringing something into being that didn't exist before.
It's so easy to just be like, you know what? I'm going to watch The Office some more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot easier. So by having that set time, from 8 to 8:30, even if it's only a short period of time a day, like 30 minutes or 10 minutes, from 8 to 8:10, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write.
Yeah.
For that time, and nothing else is going to happen. Usually when I do that, I end up writing past the time that I set for myself.
Right.
I'll write more than just those 10 minutes. I'll go for 30 minutes. Or sometimes it's really hard and I do it and then I end after 10 minutes, but at least I got another 300 words written or something like that.
Right. And for different people, different times a day might work best. If you are a morning person, you might be able to get up and write before school. If you are not a morning person, maybe when you get home from school or after dinner or right before bed, those might be better times for you to get your writing in.
Yep.
But if you really make it something for yourself that it's like part of your daily routine, if you try to every day do writing during your writing time, you can get into a habit. I remember I read something on the internet once. Somebody said it takes a certain number of days to get into a habit.
Yeah.
But if you do something like at the same time every day for, it might have been as short as like a week, but you can develop a habit. You just get into it. Like, I'm going to write at this time every day. Before you know it, that's just your writing time.
That's just what you do.
Yeah. Your family will know like, oh, this is James's writing time. We're going to leave him alone when it's James's writing time because
they don't leave me alone.
I said maybe.
Thanks.
But that's why, your situation in your life will be different. Maybe getting up early before the rest of your family wakes up could be your best writing time.
Yep.
Yeah. So the second part of that, having a daily writing time can be very successful, but then you can't just sit down and write 10 words and be like, the creative juices aren't flowing today. I'm done. It's really important to have a word count goal. Like every day I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write 1 page or I'm going to try to hit 1,000 words. That's a lot. So you might need to start with something, smaller. But having that sort of like hard rule for yourself, like I'm not going to stop writing until I get 2 pages done or 1 page.
Yeah.
I find, and tell me if this is the same for you, but it's sort of like having that firm rule there for yourself. You can kind of help push yourself through those little bits of writer's block or not knowing what to write about.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
But if you're telling yourself, okay, you know what? I'm just in the next 5 minutes, I'm going to write 100 words. I'm just going to write 100 words. It doesn't really matter. Timothy sat down on the bench and looked at the park around him. Okay, I don't like this, but I'm just going to keep writing it. A pigeon flew by and he felt the wind on his face. Okay, now we've actually got something going here. And you just force yourself to write the next word and the next word. And, sometimes 1,000 words is not realistic, not doable, or doesn't feel like it's within reach. So you break it down into smaller things. Just 100 words. I'm just going to write for the next 100 words, and then I'm going to write the next 100 words after that. You don't run a marathon at once. You run it one step at a time.
I'm glad that you said running, because I feel like when you start running, sometimes you feel like, oh, you're not really into it. You're not really feeling it when you start like a jog, but then you can kind of get into your rhythm. You just got to force yourself to start. And then once you kind of get warmed up and get going, if you force yourself to keep on going, you can kind of get into a nice rhythm where you feel like you can just run for a while.
Yeah.
I think writing is the same way. It's like you force yourself to keep on going, and pretty soon you're not having to force yourself. The words are just flowing. You kind of hit upon something really fun and you're just like in the zone. So, the third important part that we kind of briefly touched upon there is there's a third thing you have to do. If you're going to force yourself to have a daily writing time and a word count you're going to try to hit every day, you're going to probably run into that feeling of like, oh, I don't think this is very good. Every writer, you get over your initial interest in your own idea, and then you start having that feeling of, is this really as good as I thought the idea was, or is this really as fun as I thought it would be? And you start internally kind of judging your own writing, or
even worse, comparing it to other books that you've read. You read yours and you compare it to Harry Potter or Percy Jackson, and it's not as good.
Yeah,
of course it's not as good. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
But I have to remind myself I'm not J.K. Rowling. Also, that wasn't the first thing she ever wrote. She wrote and edited and fixed.
Yeah.
And that's not what I'm comparing to. I wrote a thing and I'm happy with it.
Yeah. The term for this is, it's like you have an editor inside your own mind who's sitting there being like, is that really the best you can do? Or is this really that good? And you have to be able to silence that inner editor. You have to be able to say, I'm going to keep on going, even if I don't think that this is the best thing I've ever written, because guess what? You're going to have an opportunity to go back and fix it. You can go back and make it better later.
Yeah.
But you can't go back and make something better that you never wrote.
Exactly. Exactly.
So you might need to write something and actually finish it and then sit on it. Well, not literally, but set it aside for a few days or a week.
Oh, they didn't mean that literally?
Yeah. Stop sitting on your writing. That's pointless.
Well, the last 15 years have been really confusing then. Okay.
So getting organized can include 1, having a set time to write, 2, meeting a daily word count goal, and 3, deciding ahead of time you're not going to edit your work. That means you're not going to mentally edit it. You're not going to sit there judging your own writing. And you're also not...
I don't like that.
Yeah.
Get rid of it.
And you're not going to go back and change anything until your first draft is complete. It's okay to have the idea like, oh, you know what? I might want to actually, do something different on your next draft, but that's fine. Don't go and edit it while you're working on it.
That's the hardest part for me.
Yeah.
And one of my first stories that I wrote was shortly after I'd been given this advice from you, I think. And I was going along and I realized that I had introduced a character in this chapter, in this location. And then I realized that they're actually much better. They would help the story a lot more if they were actually over here in a completely different location.
Yeah.
I did not delete what I had written. I left it all in there.
Yeah.
But then I took the character and I wrote them in newly as if we had never met them before in a completely new place.
Right. But it's like skiing downhill. You got to keep on going.
You can't go back up.
On your next, you can go up the ski lift and you can start over from the top and you can take a different
That's a great
path
analogy.
down the mountain.
Yeah. He's such a good writer.
Oh, thanks, James. So yeah, don't try to hike back up the mountain in your skis. It's awkward. It doesn't work very well. You're going to be mad at yourself.
Ski patrol will get mad at you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
Here is your first activity for the day. This is what we want you to do. In the Q&A box, try to figure out and write down for yourself a time of day you could write daily and what word count goal you could attempt. And you might have to take a second and figure out how could you organize your life to get daily creative writing time. So do you want to try to do it before breakfast? Do you want to try to do it before bed? Do you want to try to do it at your lunch break? Or, if you're at school? This might be a little bit easier if you're still at home, if school and everything hasn't started back up. You might just tell your family, oh, I'm going to go write at 1 p.m. every day. I'm going to finish my lunch and I'm going to go write for a little bit. Yeah.
One thing to add to that is I found, especially when I'm at home, there's a lot of other tempting things to do.
Yeah.
I never want to clean my room as much as I do when I'm supposed to be writing. Like, I could just fold that laundry right there. It would just take 10 minutes, right? So in addition to having a set time that I write, I also go to a different location sometimes. Like I'm going to go sit out on the deck and I'm going to write. And that's what I do when I'm out there.
Yeah.
To help take away the allure, the chance of me doing something else than just writing.
That's a really good point. I definitely, if I have my phone next to me, I'm not going to get anything done.
Nothing.
And even writing on a laptop
behind.
Yeah. And even writing on a laptop that's connected to the internet is like so dangerous. There's so many interesting other things you can do instead of write. I almost feel like they should sell special laptops that don't connect to the internet, which I don't think you can find that anymore, but you could lock yourself in a room with a laptop that does not connect to the internet and you could just write because there's nothing else to do.
Do you know what doesn't connect to the internet? A pencil and paper.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
If you write in a notebook by hand, you cannot open up a new tab and go to Google in your notebook.
That's a good point.
Yep.
All right, let's see if we have any answers in here so far. Mackenzie said at 12:35. Good.
Very specific time. I like that.
Yeah, it's probably like you've eaten your lunch, you've had time to digest it for a few minutes. It's time to write. I like it. I think I write better on a full stomach.
I definitely do.
Because if I'm hungry, that's one more thing I can go do instead of writing.
But I need chips. Okay.
Yeah, you sit down, you start to write, and then it's like, I should really have a snack while I write, Yeah. And then before you know, it's like, oh, where'd the time go? I guess it's time to end off. Isis says 300 words is the goal. Morning, lunch, after school. Okay, so it sounds like Isis is saying 3 times a day.
Good.
That's a good idea.
Great.
Yeah. Oh, Mackenzie says at 12:35 to 12:55.
There you go. And you can try stuff out. If you try out a schedule and it does not work for you, Corey suggested writing in the morning. So I tried it one time. It went horribly. I am not a morning person. I never did it again. But I was able to do that, learn, adjust. And now I know kind of like 10 to 10:30 at night is a great time for me.
Yeah. Yeah. But like you're saying, everybody's different. I have 2 small children. So at the end of the day, it's not always a great time to write for me. I found that when I could get myself up and I wrote at like 5:30 in the morning before my kids woke up, that was the best time for me to write. I could get like an hour of writing in, without being interrupted, hopefully.
There you go.
All right, let's see. Milo says 3 p.m. for 1 hour, and he's going to do 555 words. I love it.
Yeah.
I love 555. That's so cool. Ethan says, I could do it early in the morning after I wake up. Great. You're fresh in the morning. You just woke up. Maybe you write your dreams down as part of your story.
Ooh, I like that. Or your characters have to deal with the dreams that you had that night.
Yes. There you go. It's like a writing prompt every day.
Yeah.
Evelyn says 2:45 to 3:15, 200 words.
That's good.
Awesome. Shanna says, I think about 330 to 415 to write 300 to 400 words a day. Is that too much?
I think it's a pretty good window and a good amount of words. That's about what it takes me to write that many words if I'm sitting and thinking about the story.
Yeah, 45 minutes, it's enough time to get something done, but it's not so much time that you're going to be sitting there, you know, feeling bored or sleepy or anything else. Lorna says 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. or that it says 7 to 8. That could be morning or night.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, whichever one works. Haley says Saturday at 2 after I do my chores.
There you go.
Very good, Haley. Lorna says I will write from 7:30 to 8. All right, there you go. Lila says I could write at 3 p.m. Awesome. Isa says that my grandfather's laptop doesn't have Wi-Fi. There you go.
Perfect.
See? Older technology is sometimes better than newer technology if newer technology distracts you from getting your work done. Right?
I like that. Yep. Exactly.
Yep. Haley says before bed. Very awesome. Fallon says I normally write during this time. Otherwise, I write whenever I get the chance to when I'm not drawing. My goal is supposed to be at least 200 words. So that's awesome. That's a great goal. April says, I can do it whenever I want to because I don't have to do anything at all tomorrow, today, yesterday, or any day while we have to stay home.
April, that is so true.
Yeah, I bet some people will have probably written entire books while they were at home during this whole thing.
And if you're thinking, okay, things are starting to relax a little bit, this quarantine isn't going to last forever. Rats, I've missed my shot to write a book during the lockdown, during the quarantine. No, now is the perfect time to start, or grab that story that you started last year and continue it. Start now.
Yeah, I find sometimes, you know, there's this common thing that I read about. Sometimes professional writers, they will like go on a vacation. They'll like get all this time free. They'll like rent a cabin in the woods and they're just going to write for like weeks straight. And they get nothing done. And they realize that they got more done at home when they had a job and all their normal responsibilities. It's almost like there's something about writing, getting to be that little bit of fun, extra creative time you have that you have to fit into a busy day, that you could get more done than if you just had no time at all. I mean, if you have all the time in the world, it's like if you look into this, if you Google this, there's a lot of writers have talked about this.
Yeah. Where's the challenge? Where's the rush? Where's the necessity?
Yeah. So when this whole stay-at-home quarantine thing is over, you might find you get more writing done. Katja says, I'm going to write right after this webinar. Awesome.
Yeah.
And I will write before dinner. Very good. Isa says, I could do it before I go to bed. 666 words. All right. There you go. That's 111 more words than Mr. 555. Katja says,
we're gonna start a writer fight in
here.
there.
I'm going to write 777 words.
778 words.
Lila says, I could probably write for 30 minutes. Awesome. Great. You guys are continuing to write lots of awesome answers in here, but we don't have enough time. You guys are writing so much. We got to move on to the next part. So we will
talk about.
Yeah, we'll go back and read all of your comments later. Thank you for doing that activity. All right. Next part. So the other good idea, I think, is having a community. And a community means, of course, like a group of people is the basic definition of that word. So for writers, having a community can include creating or joining a writer's group, 2, sharing your writing with family, and 3, participating in National Novel Writing Month and similar activities. So to break this down, to talk about those first 2 real quickly, writers groups and family. So a writers group is not anything complicated. It's literally just getting a group of friends to all write, and then you're going to meet up and you're going to share your writing with each other.
Yep. Simple as that. Even if it's 2 people. Here, you read my story, I'll read yours.
Yeah, there's no paperwork to fill out. You don't have to like go sign up on anything. A writer's group is literally just, you kind of have a group of people that you're all going to support each other, and just having, I think just the idea that somebody else is going to read what you wrote can make you a better writer. Because having an audience, that you're going to write it for somebody else to read, there's something about keeping somebody else in mind. You're going to try to like write better, if that makes sense. You're going to try to write for an audience. It's like, you know, a real person is going to read it. I think you're going to try to step up your game and do a good job.
Yeah. I think the story behind Alice in Wonderland, is it C.S. Lewis?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, C.S. Lewis, the author of Alice in Wonderland. He wrote those stories for his niece, I think, whose name was Alice.
Or like a Children of a Friend or something.
Yeah, some little girl that he knew, family friend, and her name was Alice, and he made fantastical stories about her, and that's how we got this amazing realm.
Yeah. I mean, any parent will know, like making up stories for your own kids is super fun, and you often have a lot of fun doing it because you know you're writing for somebody, or in that case, you're just telling a story for somebody. Mm-hmm. You're going to try to put in things maybe that they like, maybe that they'll respond to. You know, it can kind of create creativity. You know, it's good to have some agreements in place, like you're going to try to support each other and come up with, you know, what they call like constructive criticism. Means if you're going to give them feedback, try to help it, you know, them improve.
I'm not just going to say, you know, Corey, I read your story. I don't like it.
Didn't work for me.
Nah, I'm just, I don't know. I don't like it. It's not good.
Yeah. It's like, what are you going to do with that? Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah. Anytime.
So, having a writer's group, you basically have a group of people you're going to write with, but you all sort of have the agreement that you'll try to come up with some things that you liked and some things that they could improve, but it'll all be communicated in like a friendly, supportive way.
Mm-hmm. You know, Corey, this is really, really great. I had trouble believing this part where the character, you had never talked about them having laser beam eyes before.
That's fair.
And all of a sudden they have laser beam eyes. That's something you could work on there, but
I'm gonna fix that.
I loved it though. Yeah.
So the second thing there, having your family read the things that you write. Usually you won't find a more supportive group anywhere than your family. Writing things and showing it to your parents, or your brothers, sisters, grandparents. You can usually get the encouragement and sort of the feedback that you'll really enjoy from people that are part of your family. They'll usually be honest with you too, hopefully, and tell you like, I really think you should try spelling words correctly. But you'll get a lot of support from your family if you share your writing with them.
Yep.
But the other big topic that we wanted to talk about is this activity called National Novel Writing Month. So I was going to take some screenshots of their website and show it to you today, but their website appears to be down. I'm not sure why, but it was broken. So I just had to grab some random pictures from the internet. NaNoWriMo is the shortened way that this activity is called, but NaNoWriMo is short for National Novel Writing Month. NaNoWriMo can help you get organized and have a community. We've been doing NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month, for years.
14, 15 years now, I think.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. It's been around since maybe like 2007. It's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
But what it is it's basically an activity where people all over the world, young people, old people, people in between, usually in the month of November is where it started. You set aside a month where you're going to try to write every single day in the entire month of November. And it started out, it was just one writer and his group of friends, like maybe 10 people total. But every year it grew till now millions of people have participated in National Novel Writing Month. The idea is by having a giant group of people that are all trying to write, the goal is 50,000 words in 1 month. And I know that sounds like a lot.
Because it is.
It is a lot. But you can kind of set a goal for yourself. You can decide, I want to try to write 5,000 words in a month. And you break that down by day. You take the overall word count and you divide it by 30, which is the number of days in the month. And you figure out how many words you'd have to write per day. If you're just starting out, if you've never tried to write something long before, do a smaller word count. If you really want to go for it, you can pick a big word count. But there have been a lot of professionally published novels that your parents may have read, that you may have even read, that started out by somebody sat down and decided that they were going to take part in this activity, which was, I am going to try to write a complete book in 1 month, because a lot of people never get around to it. But when you know
One day I will.
Yeah. But when you know that a million other people are going to be doing that too, it can kind of give you the encouragement.
It gives you a set time that you need to write. Maybe it doesn't tell you what time of day. That's up to you.
Yeah.
But you have to do it between November 1st and November 30th as part of the big organized activity. And it gives you a word count goal, which is the second thing that you talked about. You have to do 50,000 words in the month, or 10,000 words in the month, or whatever the number it is that you chose. If you take 50,000 words a month, divide it by 30, you get about 1,667 words.
Yeah.
So November 1 rolls around. I know I got to write 1,667 words, and that motivates me to sit down and get started.
Yeah. And even for an adult where we have practice, typing, we have a high words per minute typing count, 1,667 words per day, that you have to devote some time to that. You really have to be serious about sitting down and trying to, write a good chunk every day.
Usually takes me about 2 hours.
Yeah, it's definitely a time commitment, but that's why you can also do your own version of it where you decide on your own word count. You could do sort of a version of it where maybe it's for 1 week, you're going to write every day with a group of people.
Oh, I like that.
But the main points that an activity like this hits, these are just some pictures because, again, their website was down today.
I think I know what it is. There's a bunch of people at home. They're quarantined. Probably there's millions of people trying to write books right now and going to their website for resources.
Yeah. But here, it gives you a group of people. These people are not maintaining social distancing. But when everything's back to normal, you can...
it's an old photo.
Yeah.
You can see because the iPhones are older.
Yeah. Being able to sit down with a group of your friends and you all write at the same time, even if it's, over the internet or you're just doing this while, texting with them or whatever, but being able to, you're all working on the activity can be really fun. Having the idea that you're going to sit down and every day of the month, you're going to check off every day. I wrote today, I wrote tomorrow, I write the next day. You can really build up momentum. You can get a lot of words on the page. And having such a giant goal that you're going for, you do have to silence the inner editor. You don't have time to go back and rewrite what you've already written because you won't make your word count. You'll run out of time.
That's right.
So you're forced to just cancel your inner editor and say, nope, I'm not going to go back and rewrite. I'm not going to judge what I've written. I'm just going to write. I'm just going to move forward.
And it's so tempting to edit and try to get it perfectly right the first time.
Yeah.
Timothy sat down on the bench in the park.
Oh, that's not a good first line.
Do I want to name him Timothy? Maybe his name should be Benjamin. I don't know. What am I doing? Let me just keep going.
Yeah.
The first draft of Lord of the Rings is not good. The author, his son published it years later, and
really?
And it's not good. Frodo is named Bimbo.
No, he's not.
Yes, he is. I'm not even joking. and it's just this over the top birthday party, and it's really just not great. And he got about 3 pages in, and then started a new draft.
Interesting.
But if you saw the early rough drafts of stories that you love, some of them would probably be unrecognizable by how not good they are. So don't worry if you don't like it. You know what? If you want to change your character's name from Bimbo to Frodo, that's totally fine. You can do that in the edit. You can do that when you go to write your second draft.
So here is our second activity of the day. Following that spirit, we want you to write a paragraph. I want you to write at least 4 sentences without editing or changing anything you write once you begin. I think some of our writers at home, you guys do a great job, but I think some of us go back and edit and rewrite and kind of, tweak it until it seems just right.
Especially if it's going to be read on a webinar.
Yeah, out loud. It's going to, the recording here is going to be online forever. But right here, you have to go out on a limb.
Yep.
You have to write a paragraph where you don't go back and change anything. And you know what?
Typos are okay. You can fix the typo. That's totally okay.
But yeah, whatever you write, that's what we're going to read, and it's going to be fine. You're just going to move forward. You're going to write 4 sentences or more and just have fun with it. Silence that inner editor. Silence that voice that says to go back and change things, because this activity and writing in general are just about forward motion. You are skiing down the ski slope and you are not marching back up it in your awkward skis.
That's such a great analogy.
I just came up with that on the spot.
It's so good. If we had this
that.
15 years ago, then things would have been a lot easier.
We'll have to use that again in the future. Right?
That's right.
Yeah. We'll use that for Writers Club and whatnot. The ski slope analogy. All right. So we will be looking out for your answers here. We're going to look for those paragraphs where you do not go backwards, just moving forward. You guys have written so many awesome things in the Q&A box today. We just haven't had time to read a lot of them yet.
That's right.
You know, I think at the end here, after we've done this activity, I think we should take a few minutes since there are not many webinars left, and since we have you here today, and we should just answer some questions about writing.
That sounds great.
Yeah, because I think when this activity is done, we're going to have a few minutes left. So that'd be a fun 200th webinar activity.
That's right.
Just some actual.
We'll be here for 200 minutes. No, that's not.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Calm down, James.
All right, let's see. So while you guys are writing those, let's just see what else we have in here. Ron Beard talks about, in school, we practice flash drafting where we can't edit and we just write for 40 minutes straight. I love that idea.
That's really great.
Just moving forward.
Flash draft. I like that.
I've never heard that term before. That's a great.
We've done word sprints where you have to go for, we'll set 5 minutes, 10 minutes, something like that. And you just got to keep writing, no going back. But a flash draft for 40 minutes.
Fallon says, my friends and I actually do that. We each write our own story to a daily writing prompt. It's actually really cool and fun to see what each other write. That's a great idea. And Fallon says, phew, thank you for letting us correct typos.
Milo upped his goal for himself. Now, so he said 555. Someone else said 666. Milo now says he's going to write 1,111 words.
Which Ethan immediately followed by saying, I will write over 9,000. All right.
I have written over 9,000 words, not in a single day. It takes a while, but it feels really good.
Awesome. James, would you like to do the honor of reading some of these paragraphs? Here we go.
All right, Katya. This is from Katya. Let's go to the park, Elliot said. Where? There's no park near us, Madison asked. I meant my backyard, Elliot said. Oh, okay, Madison replied. You always surprise me with your words, Madison said.
Very nice. Moving forward. April says, I am April. I have long hair. I like dogs. My birthday is September 9th, 2012. Very good. That sounds like a memoir, just describing.
Yep. Good. All right, Evelyn says, Mandy sat on her father's chair. She missed him a lot. When he died, she couldn't believe it. He was always so full of life. You've got a great start to a story right there.
Sounds very dramatic.
Yeah.
It might be like it reminds me of like, you know, like historical fiction or something that has some drama in it. It's very nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great.
I can tell you guys are writing some good, solid paragraphs here because I think some of these next ones that come in are probably going to have some heft to them. Here's Lila. I could feel her icy glare on me as I stood there waiting for the woman to answer me. She walked towards me with such intent, I was intimidated by her. As she walked up to me, she touched my arm and I swore her hands were made of ice. Her eyes were an icy blue as I looked up to see her face with those eyes and nearly white blonde hair.
Ooh, wow.
It kind of sounds like one of the two ladies from our observation and description webinar yesterday.
Oh, yeah. Man, it started with just a nice thing on a park, and all of a sudden there's these two like mortal enemies staring at each other down in the park.
Icy stares with white blonde hair.
All right. Yes, April, we did say paragraph, and I know and if any of you are anything like me, if I have any distractions around me, I find it extremely difficult to concentrate and write.
Yeah. Yet we're still talking.
Yeah. And we're still talking. So feel free to mute us if you want to.
While you write your paragraph, yeah.
Some people have to be listening to music when they write. I cannot listen to music.
Really?
I cannot.
See, I love to listen to music while I write.
Me too, but then I don't write. So I have to have complete quiet and, like no one chewing near me, anything. I'm very easily distracted.
I'll try to put on some music that doesn't have words in it because like soundtracks or like classical music or something, I like to kind of fill the silence. But if there's like a lot of, if there's songs that have like a lot of words in them, that definitely distracts me from writing.
Everyone is different. Keep trying stuff until you find something that works for you.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to read the one from Isis. Her eyes were burning and she couldn't see. The bomb had shaken her and she felt as if her heart was thumping so hard that she wouldn't be surprised if the Martians could hear it. Ooh. She realized that she was crying. Her ears were ringing and she couldn't hear anything. Someone from far behind her wrapped their arms around her and helped her up. She leaned into their arms and cried until her eyes hurt.
Wonderful, Isis.
Wow.
Mackenzie says, and then the dragon reared. He was cornered. The bigger one was going to chase him until he won. If he was caught, he would be chased out of the territory. They flew across the mountains, erupting away.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I feel like we're in the setting right now.
Yeah. These are the mountains the dragons are flying over.
Whoa, I think I see him. That's been there the whole time. Okay.
All right. This is from...
Here's from Ethan.
Wow. Is this something you wrote today? This is a big chunk.
Here we go. Okay. I think I'm the right one to read this. Thank you, Ethan. Hello, my name is James. I'm going to tell you a story. It all started in 1942. But first, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I live in London, England. My parents' names are Joseph and Elizabeth. My father was fighting in the war. That was before the accident happened. You see, originally he was just supposed to be building planes, but soon the fighting got harder. Germany started sending more and more troops over. They needed more soldiers to be fighting, and he was sent out off to war. He was shot down after destroying almost 20 planes. He was given a large funeral, and we all mourned for him. My mother hasn't left her room since. Since then, I haven't been allowed to go to school, so most days I just wander around the house. This morning, I decided to go visit the gardener. He has a fluffy white hair, simple clothing, and a light complexion. We called him Scotty. And then it looks like it gets cut off there. That's really good. My father's name is actually Joseph.
Are you serious?
I am serious.
I think Ethan is a mind reader.
Or Ethan might know me. I don't know.
Haley says, at home, I was so creeped out when I figured out my nose was a big red shiny ball. So I covered it up with a pink washcloth. When I went outside to play, when my brother Ethan turned into a monster out of the blue. So I ran and ran until I woke up in the darkness of my bedroom. The start of a scary story.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's good. Okay. Milo has an amazing chunk of writing here. Milo, we are going to read just in the interest of time, we have...
I think we could read the first chunk
just
of it, maybe.
Just a couple minutes left in the webinar today. All right, I'm going to read the first bit.
And then we have to answer a couple questions.
We do. Once upon a time, there was a boy who lived with only his mother. His name was Jason. What was strange about the place that he lived in the woods, was that there was no one around for miles and miles except his friend Max and his mom. Or so he thought. And I'm just going to leave it there. Milo has a bunch more that he's written, and Corey and I are going to read it when we're done with the webinar today. And more from Ethan and more from Fallon. You guys are so great. We're going to make sure to capture all this before we sign off today.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm willing to take, if you guys still have time, I think we can take a few extra minutes here. And I thought it would be fun today you guys can just ask some questions about writing, and we'll try to do our best to answer them. While you guys take a few minutes and write your questions in there, I'm going to go back earlier in the Q&A box and see if there was any questions from earlier that we could take up.
While you are hunting for that, I just want to add one more thing about writing without editing. Writing with just, if it ends up on the page, you're stuck with it. It's there, at least until you finish your draft and go all the way back to the beginning. And that is some of the best writing that I've ever done was a complete accident. I thought that I was just writing in order to finish up that last 100 words. And I'm like, I had set that target, I'm going to write 500 words in 10 minutes or something like that. I was totally happy for those, like, this is all going to be something I delete later. And then you accidentally write something really great and you read it again and you're like, did I write that? Most of the best stuff that I love about my own writing, I wrote during those times when I thought it was just trash. It was just garbage time.
Yeah, I've gone back and reread something I wrote before, and I go like, wow, that's actually really good.
That's really good.
All right.
Job. Yeah.
We have a question from Evelyn here. This was from earlier in the webinar. James, do you only write space books and stories?
I have written space books and stories. I've also written other space.
I've written space stories and other space stories.
Exactly. No, I've written kind of a bit of everything, I think, but I do like space stories the most. Yeah.
Awesome. Milo asks, this is a general question. Will there ever be any webinars after next week? Well, next week is the last week of our free webinars, but we're discussing plans for the future.
Right.
We're trying to figure out what we want to do for the future, because next week it's the end, and there's going to be a grand finale next Friday, a week from tomorrow. So I hope you all tune in for that. And then stay tuned, because we're discussing plans for the future after that.
There will be something coming next. There will be a phase 2, and we're excited to tell you about it, but not right now.
Shanna asked, I am very stuck. I am trying to put a fairly small story into like a 10-chapter book. Can you help me? Okay, well, I would answer your question with another question. I would probably ask, if you're starting with a fairly small story, why are you trying to turn it into a 10-page book? Sometimes I think the ideas that we have, they might just be better as a short story.
It's happened for me.
Yeah, or maybe something is such a big idea that it would need a whole book to tell the story.
Yeah.
I think for a long, long time, like the only kinds of stories that you could read would be full-length books. But sometimes, I don't know if you've experienced this, but I've read a book and I asked myself at the end, I'm like, why was that book so long? Like, it felt like a short story idea stretched to the length of a book. So you could read short stories, you could read full-length books, but something I've seen in the last few years, more and more what are called novellas are being published, which is, it's not a short, it's longer than a short story. It's way shorter than a book.
Yeah.
But you can buy books at the bookstore that they're like 70 pages long, 90 pages, and that's it. That's way shorter than like even a Harry Potter book is several hundred pages.
Yeah. There's no rule that a story needs to be a certain length or that a book needs to be a certain length.
Yeah. I would say if it feels like a short story, just write a short story.
Yep. And I've had that happen where I had a short story that I pushed it past the point. I thought I was writing a big, long story.
Yeah.
The first kind of 6,000 words were really great. And then after that, it was just terrible. It was so bad. It was some of the worst writing I've ever done. Then I realized if I just went back and I literally just cut the story in half, the last 6,000 that I wrote, just delete it, keep the first 6,000. It was pretty great.
Yeah. There you go. All right. Shanna asked, is 150 words too little, too much, or just right? What do you think?
Yes, yes, and yes, depending on what you're like right now. Do you have, just a few minutes over lunchtime or right after dinner before you got to do your homework that you can sit down and just throw out 150 words? Excellent. Yeah. Do you have 3 hours free to you? 150 words is too little. Bump it up.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think like 250 words usually fit on one page, on one computer page. So,
yeah. It's the right challenge for the right amount of time and for the right person.
All right, good. Let's see what else we have here. All right. Fallon asks, what do you think is the most important thing to keep in mind about writing? Besides, there are no rules, only suggestions.
I think the most important thing to keep in mind is all the rules. Don't take any suggestions. I'll let you answer this one first.
Okay. What do you think is the most important thing to keep in mind about writing? I think probably the most important thing about writing is that you should be having fun. If it's creative writing, you should write things that are fun for you and hopefully going to be fun for somebody else to read. I mentioned the other day, I think one of the best pieces of writing advice I ever heard was leave out all the boring stuff. And I was like, whoa, like it changed my whole viewpoint, because I would write stories where, I don't know why, but I felt like I needed to include these conversations about nothing particular. And I was, it kind of goes also with, I read another piece of advice once that said, once you write like a scene in a book, you can usually delete the first part of it and the last part of it. And I was like, what? And they were like, look again at the scene you wrote in a book. You almost always come in too early and leave too late. And I was like, what? And I looked at things that I'd written, and I would describe the person walking into the building and going up the elevator and all stuff before the conversation started. And I was like, what if I just deleted all that and I started with the actual fun part? Like, what if you just start right when the space battle begins?
That's a great idea.
Star Wars, the first Star Wars movie, A New Hope, begins in the middle of a space battle. Can you imagine if it started 30 minutes earlier with like the ships are getting closer and closer,
The early draft of Star Wars had a bunch of stuff like that in the first 30 minutes. It just had Luke down on the planet, just kind of like cleaning. And then it's like, oh, look, there's a space battle. And they cut all of it out. They just cut.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
To the space battle.
There you go.
Also, that opening crawl for Star Wars used to be like 7 paragraphs.
Oh, wow.
And then they cut it down to those 3 little short paragraphs.
There you go. So I think the most important thing is make sure you're having fun. So if you're not having fun, the reader's not going to have fun. And one of the main ways to do that, leave out all the boring stuff. What do you think?
I think that's really great. That doesn't mean, as you're writing, like, boy, is this boring? I don't know. Is this boring? Whoa, there's your inner editor. Go ahead and write it. And then when you go back and review it and edit it afterwards, then it's like you said, all right, good. What in here can I take out?
Yeah.
Great. And now you have a quicker, more snappy, like a wittier book.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mackenzie asks, what is a draft? Can you explain that to us?
Right. Yes. A draft is one version of something that you're doing.
Yeah.
So the first version that you do of a book, the first time you ever sit down and write it, you could call that your first draft. Most people also call that the rough draft, because man, is it rough. It's really rough. If you rubbed your hand over it, you'd get splinters and all kinds of stuff. And it
hasn't been smoothed out.
It hasn't been smoothed out. There's been no polish.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's no paint on it. So first draft, second draft. I don't know what the draft number is of some books that we've read. I mean,
well, I have read writers that say sometimes the version of the book that you read was like the 10th main version. There's even smaller versions, but they rewrote their book basically like 10 times before we ever saw it.
Right. So that's what we mean by draft.
Yeah. Each major time you go through it, you write it the first time, and when you're kind of done and you let it sit for a bit and you go back and you do a rewrite, you're on your second draft.
Mm-hmm. I want to take up Isis's question here.
Okay.
What do you do if you want to write a fan fiction, but the series is not finished and you don't know if this will contradict, which means to go against, what the author was writing? Write the story. Yep.
Yeah.
Write your own story, write your own thing. I was talking to Corey just last week about fan fiction. I was like, Corey, can I please do a webinar about fan fiction? He said, no. I'm just kidding.
No, I didn't.
See, that was fan fiction of something that actually happened.
Yeah.
But it contradicted what happened in reality. But it was fun to write it in my mind instantly. I've written a lot of fan fiction. That's how I started writing. I was, watching Pokemon, and I'm like, this is lame. We could do way more cool stuff. It was great. But what if we did this? So I wrote my own Pokemon stories.
Yeah.
And that's how I started.
There's a lot of professional writers that how they started out was they wrote their own fan fiction of something, and then they either altered it enough that it was their own thing that they could publish it, or they got inspired by something and they were kind of writing their own thing that took off. But one of the things about fan fiction is that unless you're hired by the company that produced the original story, you're never going to be able to sell the fan fiction. You're not going to make any money for it. So just have fun. It doesn't matter if your story contradicts where the original story went. There's actually a whole genre. Like, I love to read comic books, and there's a whole type of comic book that they take an established character like Spider-Man or somebody else, and they say, what if this other thing happened? You know, like what if Spider-Man was a bad guy? And they'll write a whole comic book where like, here's the main story going along, and this story kind of branches off and does its own thing.
Yep.
So it's totally okay to do that in your own writing.
That's right. And who knows, your version might end up being better than the original.
Yeah. Fallon asks, what is one of the easiest ways to get inspired or get ideas for a story, in our opinion? Getting ideas is often, I think, one of the easiest things. And I don't mean that if you're having trouble coming up with ideas. What I mean is that there's a million good ideas out there. You can look at what are called like story prompt websites. There are websites and books out there that they're just full of like, here's an idea for a story. You can go on those websites and you can just start there. You could take, like he's talking about, take a story that you already like and write your own version of it.
It's a really easy way to get into stuff because you don't need to figure out a character. You don't need to make a character. You don't need to make up a world and a setting and a whole backstory. It's already been done for you. You can just pick it up and continue it.
Yeah, you can write your own version of Harry Potter or Pokemon or any other show or book or movie that you already enjoy and just write your own version of it. Totally fine. I think when people say that they're having trouble coming up with ideas, I think what they really mean usually is that they feel like their ideas that they do have aren't good enough. I think most of us actually do have lots of ideas that if we told ourselves that it's okay, like go with it, you can write that story. I think the more important thing is usually, don't silence the inner editor. Take some of those ideas that you have thought of and go for it and just get them down on paper.
And sometimes you just need to say, you know what, I'm going to on purpose write something really bad. Yeah, I'm going to intentionally write poorly.
It's okay to write a first draft. That
Get it out of your system. You know what, Corey, that idea that you had about like having the Power Rangers fight a marshmallow on the moon, do it.
I'm going to.
Go for it. That's actually a story that we did.
Let's see. Fallon also asks, what is your favorite things to write about? And that's for both of us. I like to write, I have in my life, I've written superhero stories. I wrote an entire novel length story that was like a superhero story. I like to write in the fantasy genre where, there's like magic and swords and fun stuff like that.
Yeah.
I also like to write a lot of scary stories. I try to write at least one big spooky or scary story every year because I like that genre of writing too.
He writes really good scary stories.
Oh, thank you.
We should do a thing with everyone when October rolls around.
Yes, we should.
Writing a spooky story.
Yeah, I've actually, for my friends in the past, I've run a spooky story challenge where we all write a spooky story and get together and share stories with each other.
You mean we have a community of people that get together and talk about writing, and we set aside time and we make word count goals?
Yes.
And we support each other with constructive criticism?
Hey, it's a real life thing.
There we go.
There you go.
One of my favorite things to write about is exciting kind of challenges in survival. You're stuck in the woods and you need to survive, or your spaceship has been attacked by pirates and you need to figure out how to get to a friendly star system, stuff like that. This kind of really intense how to survive a dramatic situation that I would never encounter in real life. I really like that stuff.
I like those stories too.
Yeah.
That's fun. Let's see. AG says, I like creative writing a lot, but I don't like essays from school. How can I improve my factual writing? Well, we actually, if you go on the heronbooks.com website, we have several courses that you can download. You can purchase several courses that, there's right here.
There we go.
heronbooks.com. We have a coupon code that you can buy some of these courses at a discount. But we have several courses that actually help with writing factual, writing. There's like,
I was just reading one last week on essay writing, and who was that? Was that AG? Yeah, I had the same thing happen when I was in school, and it helped me when I finally realized there's really not a huge amount of difference between writing a Pokemon fan fiction and writing an essay. Allow me to back myself up here in that hopefully you're able to find at least one thing that you're interested in about. Great.
Yeah.
You have to write an essay about like, you know, why is it good to recycle? Okay, well, this is still a chance to tell a story. You know, there was a sea turtle.
I found, you know, as a student too, that when I was assigned to do some writing, I would get as creative as I possibly could within the boundaries of what I was being ordered to write about. So if, you know, if I had to write about a historical figure and I had to write, I remember once I had an assignment, I was supposed to write about Benjamin Franklin, and it was supposed to be sort of like show who he was and like what kind of person he was and like what sort of stuff he believed in. I did that by having him interact with a time traveler. So this time traveler went back in time. Yeah. And it was a lot of fun, but it also fit the boundaries of what my school was telling me to write about. So one, if you want to get better at factual writing in general, you can check out some of the writing courses on heronbooks.com. And then, like we're saying, probably just try to have a little bit more fun with it. Find something that you really want to write about or can be creative about within the confines of what you're being ordered to write about.
That's right. And what you were saying earlier about, you know, having trouble picking an idea, having trouble finding an idea. You said it's possibly that inner editor saying like, it's probably not going to be very good. That's definitely one thing. The other thing that can happen is you have so many options, it's hard to pick just one. If you're standing in the cereal aisle and there's a million cereals, it's hard to pick one. But finally, you're just like, you know what? Cheerios, let's go.
Awesome. Let's see. Lila says, I want to write an actual story, but I always end up writing just individual scenes with individual characters.
It's a good start.
Yeah.
Every story is either a short story or it's a combination of short stories.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah. Longer books are sort of just stringing together individual scenes in an order that makes sense. There's even one of my favorite books from the last few years. It's kind of like every chapter is almost like a short story, but it connects together this family that they're all sort of off having their own adventures. And it's not really towards the end of the book that all of these individual things even come together into one story. So it's almost like that's a great example of the person is just writing individual scenes with a few characters.
Good.
And it kind of turns into a whole book by the end. But I would say just keep on writing short stories. I think
keep doing that. And some of them might connect and some of them might not. But you've talked about Marvel a lot in these webinars, and it's a great example of this is you've got this big overarching story. Or let's go way back. Let's just look at that first Avengers movie. And there's like, I don't know, 8 main characters, something like that, main superheroes. But each of them have their own story. That movie doesn't go into their stories at that time, at least not very deep. Yeah. But like Iron Man's got his own movie. Thor's got his own movie. Each of these people have their own stories that you could spend a lot of time looking at. But we're just looking at this one little part of time. But all that built up because they spent the time to write those individual scenes with individual characters.
Yeah. Evelyn asks, do you like writing short stories or long books better? And she would like both of us to answer the question.
All right. A little bit of yes to both of them. It can be really scary to write a long story, to sit down knowing I'm going to write 50,000 words in the next month. I've tried every November for the last 15 years, and I've only succeeded like 5 times. The other 10 times, I have failed to reach that 50,000 word goal.
But hold up. You succeeded 5 times.
I succeeded 5 times. And
That's
even
amazing.
though I failed 10 times, failed. Even though I did not achieve my word count goal 10 times.
You probably still wrote a lot more than you would have.
I haven't made it for the last 5 years, but guess what I'm going to do November 1st this year?
Try again.
I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write again.
Yeah.
So it's scary to do a long book, and it's really satisfying to sit down and be like, you know what, in the next 3 days, I'm going to throw this story together. Yeah. And to do it, and you get your product, you get the thing at the end, and you have it, and you're done.
Yeah. I'd say of the 2 types, I might like writing short stories better, just because I think it's a little bit faster or easier to sort of get it done. To actually have a story that starts and finishes, you might be able to write it in a few days and actually have something that you can finish off and kind of polish and make good and like be proud of it. Writing a whole book length story like you say, it can take a month. There's a lot more opportunity to, burn out and not actually finish it or get distracted or something.
Discouraged.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think my personal success rate on ideas for short stories and actually getting them to a finished product is higher, but they're both definitely enjoyable.
Yep.
So, all right, I think we have time for just a few more questions.
Yes.
I'm glad you guys are willing to stick with us today. I see that there's still a lot of people
Someone in the
watching.
comment section was like, why don't you just keep going? James does that half the time. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I do, but you didn't need to call me out on it.
Yeah, we'll go for a few more minutes. This is fun. You guys can keep on asking questions for a few more minutes.
We've locked the door. We're going to keep going until 9 o'clock tonight.
Today's the 200th webinar, so we're keeping on going.
We're going to go for 200 hours.
Ooh. Yeah, I got to go home before that. Okay,
that's a joke.
All right.
Good.
Fallon asks, if you only know the general outline of a story but can't figure out the details, what might I be able to do or try to figure out what could or might happen? I'll take that one first. Okay, I think there's two overarching kind of ideas of how you write a story, and they're both okay. So some people like to just sit down with almost no plan and just go for it. They just, they're going to start with like a simple idea and they're just going to see where it goes. And as they start writing their story, they just get more and more ideas, and they're totally okay with the story starts out in a supermarket where you meet an alien, and by the end of the book or the story, you're on a pirate ship and you're fighting cowboys, and that's fine.
Almost every single one of my stories is written like that. I rarely do any outlining or planning. I just go.
Yeah, and the other idea is to some people sit down and do a lot of planning beforehand. We actually brought this book today. This is called No Plot, No Problem, and the person who started National Novel Writing Month wrote this book, and it kind of talks about both methods. This is not a Heron Books book, but you can find this on Amazon or in bookstores.
I'll hold that up for a minute.
Yeah, this is a great book it talks about, like, do you not have a plot for your story? No problem.
No plot, no problem. A plot is just stuff happening to characters.
Yeah.
Do you have a character? Did stuff happen to them? That's your plot.
Yeah. So, you might, if you're having trouble figuring out the details of what you want to have happen in your story, you might be on the wrong path out of those two paths. If you are just kind of writing along without a plan, maybe you should try being somebody who does a lot more planning first. Maybe every character in your story, you need to figure out, where they went to school, what their favorite ice cream flavor is, and just make up those details. And you might be the kind of person that when you start writing, you find, that helps you write a better story. Or if you are a planner, maybe you should just go for it and just throw the plan away and just have fun writing.
Just start following a random character in your story. You know nothing about that character. You're learning what happens. I've literally been writing. I've been going along and like the person opens the door and here's this character. Where did they come from? I had no idea that I'm the author. I had no idea that this character was there. And then I had to figure out how to get my character out of the situation. It was really exciting.
Yeah.
Milo
says, this webinar was better than my normal creative writing. Why is that? Why does it feel like it is forced? Well, Milo, we don't know what your normal creative writing is like, but I think a lot of teachers of creative writing or systems of creative writing probably act like there are more rules than they actually are. It's our viewpoint that, like, we mentioned earlier, that there are a lot of suggestions, or there are a lot of different things that have been successful or worked for other writers. But writing is art, and art fundamentally is just communication. It's, what do you want to communicate about? How do you want to communicate it? How do you want to tell your story? If you're having fun and you're communicating, you're doing fine.
Yep.
And I feel like that's the viewpoint that we always try to take on it. And I feel like that's pretty successful for the writers that we coach and teach and work with. So it might be that your normal creative writing system maybe is trying to, put too many rules on you or put you into too many, you have to do it this way. Might be worth looking at.
Or it's too comfortable for you. You got used to it and it's not really challenging anymore and you're trying to do the same thing and it's time to shake it up. time to change it up and just see what happens. And it might be totally great, and it might be a complete disaster. Either way, it's going to be interesting.
Shanna asks, what is fan fiction? That's where you just write your own story based on something that somebody else wrote. If James wrote a story and I really liked it, and I wrote a story that like takes place in that universe or with his characters, I'm a fan. That means like I enjoy his story. I'm a fan of it.
Thanks.
And I'm writing my own fiction as a fan of his. People will like watch the Avengers and then they'll write their own superhero story. That's fan fiction.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. I think we need to wrap it up. I was totally fine going over time. But if we never stop, then we keep going.
That is true. Let's find one last question.
Good.
And we'll end it off there.
And if we didn't get to your question, we apologize. If we didn't read your writing, don't worry. We're going to go through and we're going to try to capture all this writing.
Yeah, I've never seen you guys put so many awesome responses in one. There are hundreds. We are having to just grab a few of the hundreds of things that you guys have put in here. So let's find one last question in here. How do I make writing more interesting? That is from Milo. How do I make writing more interesting? Let's end off with that one. How do you feel? How do we make writing more interesting?
There's no silver bullet. There is no one solution to that. I think it has to be a combination of everything that you've been saying for the last 2 months. And
there we go.
A different thing, different suggestions at different times.
Yeah.
You can't improve writing that you never wrote.
Yeah.
So, make the time, make a goal, sit down, put the words on paper, and then go through and start to polish that up. Everything Corey's talked about over the last 8 weeks of how to, be more expressive in your writing, show something instead of telling. Don't say he was angry. Say like his face was so red it looked like you could fry an egg on it or something like that. And then, you can use that time in editing. If you read your own rough draft, this is boring. How can I use these different tools in writing to go in and spice up that bit and add some bit here? This is boring. Let's take that out.
Yeah.
And an activity that we had ready for today and we didn't get to is find out for yourself. When you read other people's stories, when you read other people's books, what do you like to read about?
Yeah.
Make a list, grab a piece of paper and list out, what do you like? I like books with superpowers. I like it when there's a mysterious villain that you don't know who it is until the end. I like when there's a bad guy who's actually a good guy working, for good the whole time.
Yeah.
Also write out what you don't like. I don't like when the good guy is actually the bad guy all along. I don't like when there's one character who's just really whiny and complains about everything.
Yeah.
I don't like when there's characters named James. That way you can, because I get confused when I write a book. I'm like, I did what? So, and then in your own writing, you can figure out for yourself what to lean towards and what to lean away from.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I think the number one way you can make your writing more interesting is figure out what would I want to read. And if you write a story that you want to read, if you can't wait to find out what happens next because you're writing something that would be what you would buy, what you would check out from the library, I guarantee it, you'll find other people that want to read it too.
Yep. And if you're not going to read it, no one else is.
Why would somebody else read it?
That's right.
Thank you guys for watching today. Thank you for watching our special edition, extra long creative writing class for our 200th webinar. We will see you back in creative writing next week. Please tune in we have 6 more days of these free webinars. We hope we see you at lots more of them. Thanks for watching today and see you next time.
I'm going to go find a vacuum.